We are live. It is episode 108. This is the Lyrical Ones podcast. My name is Cineo, and I am joined with Alfluent. Alfluent, how are you doing this evening?
West Coast, Best Coast. West Coast is so great that Abe moved here. Um, that's all I can say about that. Um, I'm doing great. A lot of transitions, a lot of things going on. Um Got to expand the brand a little bit, and I'm in a space of I like real life. Our producer is great. He making moves all the time. That's all I can say about that. Our producer is great. But I'm doing well actually. Just navigating transitions, uh, new responsibilities. It's like a isekai. I'll be in different dimensions, man, hanging out, visiting different worlds as much as possible, and trying to keep the right people in my adventure party as we all level up. How you doing, Senio?
I will say the transitions. I am embracing the the differences. Transitions bring a lot of change, brings a lot of evolution. And right now, I've been doing a song a day, Monday through Friday, and life doesn't stop. Everything keeps going. Making time to do a routine thing, right? Like for me, um, I'm preparing for parenthood. I'm preparing and nesting and putting furniture together. I am making sure that we are managing our trash efficiently for the onslaught of diapers that are to come. There are so many things that I'm preparing for on top of being this rapper in a mask, this artiste. And there's so many challenges. And so I've had this metaphor brewing, and I'm gonna, dive deeper in a video or whatnot, but it was the whole concept of the parallel between the Warriors and their championship and how people perceive the wins and the losses, because the Warriors took losses. They took over 20 losses. Did not stop them from being champions. Those losses, people had to endure, people had to watch, people had to sit through, and they still overcame. They still pushed forward and persevered. And even deeper, when you really dissect all of the finer threads, right? Like knowing that there was a period of time when Steph Curry could have got paid more and decided that he was going to take a pay cut to support the overall building of a team, to know your worth, and the dynamics of what knowing your worth means in light of what does your legacy mean to you? What is the long term mean to you? What does it mean to work within the confines of where you find yourself? Because everyone celebrates the championship, but every finer detail is what makes the championship. Every
That's
smaller
true.
thread is what knits the fabric of this this coat of armor that is designed that we can all embrace. And I can't help but feel like there's parallels. It's not even that something I can't help but feel. It's something I'm observing and witnessing around me when it comes to my friends who struggle with the where they are, what's going on, what's happening, right? As they are looking to transition or they are transitioning, and those transitions can be tough, they can be taxing. And knowing that, yeah, like it's okay to like lose. It's okay because your supporters, your fans, your friends, your family, whoever they are, the ones who are really down will support you through the loss. They will be there. They won't lose faith.
That's
And
true.
I am acknowledging and accepting that as well, and embracing the challenges, embracing the differences, embracing the lessons that I'm learning and the reminders that I'm receiving So, needless to say, like, yeah, I'm great. I'm good. I'm happy. Um, and I'm very present with all the different things they got to overcome. So, yeah, that's how we doing episode 108.
It's funny because when you speak about the multiple losses, I think about the opportunity to rehab or rehabilitate or recover from loss. And as we're in the news, first off, forget the news because the whole news cycle is set up to tear you down. It is not about building you up. What I do appreciate about Japanese news is that they always alternate between a positive story and a negative, more burdensome story. Even if you're just watching the news channel and they go to commercial, if they end on a low note, the next commercial is going to be a high note. And if the news end on a high note before commercial, that commercial might be a little bit more serious. And that is a vibe to help you, the viewer, stay even keel, stay afloat, and not be buried by negativity or what Shikamaru would call a drag. You know, when I think about recovery and rehabilitation, for these folks is being sentenced to prison, it's like you can rehab from your loss, from your failure, from your lesson anytime you want. You ain't gotta wait till you get caught. You ain't gotta wait till somebody will take your freedom or take your opportunity from you. You ain't gotta wait till somebody else acknowledge your misstep or mistake. In relationships and friendships and work, you can rehabilitate or in some circles call repent. Because like serving a penance don't mean you repented. And sometimes just because you haven't done a 180 doesn't mean you haven't repented. But when you rehab, you go through the process of acknowledging the imbalance in your movement, just like an injury. You acknowledge that, man, this part of my leg is misaligned, or the imbalance in the muscle has caused a misalignment, which has led to an injury. But if I address those imbalances, I can strengthen the kinetic chain and move better. And when I think about decision making and making missteps, you got to be able to look at yourself, with some objectivity and say, oh man, I have some imbalances in the way I see the situation. I'm not seeing my partner's perspective. I'm not looking at it from their point of view or what's best for them. I'm only seeing what's best for me, maybe, or my own lived experience at the time and navigating and responding through my own lived experience instead of the wisdom or the knowledge or the know-how or the lived experience that they may have, the insight that they may have. So I have to rehabilitate my way of thinking so I don't make the same mistake. But at first, I have to acknowledge that it was a misstep or a mistake, that there was an imbalance so that I can rehab. And when you do that, you put yourself in a position to prehab. And before you make a mistake, operate differently. Say, I know I'm not in shape to take on this next endeavor. So you do things like monitor your garbage production. You do things like take birthing classes. You do things to get prepared for the next endeavor that's going to change from one day to the next, from one week to the next. And we always had the opportunity to acknowledge, say, oh, maybe I didn't make a mistake, but I also didn't make an impact for the ideal outcome. And it's hard to do that when you win it. It's hard to do that when you see yourself as being successful. It's hard to do that when you are accomplishing goals. It's hard to say, I could have done this better. Because when you're celebrating the wins, but those 20 plus losses in a season give you a chance to look back at the tape and say, oh, we can do this better. We can do this better. There's a misalignment here. There's a discontinuity, lack of continuity here. These plays, this package of plays didn't flow right. We really messed up in this point in transition. We made too many turnovers, too many mistakes out of the double team. All these things, when you have a lesson to learn, it's easier to identify when you fail or you take a loss. Like some people got multiple offenses and they didn't learn before they got caught. And they got caught and they got sentenced and now they got plenty of time. And some people use that time and don't actually rehab their decision making. And part of that is the facility they in. The facility is not necessarily set up for them to rehab. It's just a separation from the world they know, separation from the freedom they know, and placed into a system that's set up to kill them really. And it's the same system that's like navigating a lot of things that are changing slowly. And rehab can be the simplest thing sometimes if you can see that opportunity to get better. So I'm excited for you, bro. I'm excited for your next endeavor, King.
I appreciate that. I really do. It is definitely. I'm. I'm. I'm exercising gratitude. Right. You talk about the rehab and acknowledging when you don't have it, like when you realize the prehab before the rehab, like really doing a self diagnostic check of who and where you are and how you came here and what are you trying to accomplish next. What needs to be what needs to be in alignment, what needs to be done, what work needs to be put in. Um, and yeah, like going into parenthood and parenting classes and preparing trash and how all that stuff, like, you know, it's easy for critics, or maybe it's difficult, but I think it's easy from my observation to project fear, to project the likelihoods, right? Like when you think of the names of the individuals, Bayless, Sharp, right? Like you think of the critics who have perspectives, who have experience, who have their own internalized view that they share with the world, right? Smith, right? You think of these people who become seen as, oh, well, let's refer to them for the predictions, for what's to come, for what are we not looking at? What are we not seeing? What do the perspectives have that maybe could shine a light on what we can see down the road, right? And this is going back to the whole Warriors thing where people project messaging. And it even ties to what you were saying about media and the system, right? Like We have information that's so much more accessible and readily available, yet we hold to a document and fight over something that, talking about the Constitution, right? That in some regards is a living document, but we treat it like it's like it's platinum, it's diamond, it's unbreakable. You can't change it. It needs to be forever etched in stone, and this is the way it is. When in reality, it it needs to get in alignment with the phones we have in terms of the advancements, in terms of the firmware updates. Um,
Facts.
Looking at how even in my journey of artistry, entrepreneurship, parenthood, my relationship, people often project their own experiences in fear when in my mind I'm like, this is a championship team, no doubt about it. And most are like, well, you have to feel that way. Of course, I get to feel this way. I don't even have to, because when I look at those around me, they remove from the possibility of feeling this way by saying, yeah, nah, can't do it, or that ain't me, or that ain't it, or that ain't real, or that's not whatever. And
Hmm.
it's like, it was like I often go back to certain conversations we had where you were like I was like, oh yeah, man, I'm feeling like this, and I feel like when I eat this, I get this feeling, and then you were like, why don't you just make yourself feel that way? And I was like, man, thank you for that, because I had to be reminded of the power of my own mental capacity to engage that same sensation, to concentrate on what were the feelings that I felt that I could then just induce in my own way
Yeah.
to receive the outcome I was seeking. Because I'm thinking, oh, the food, and sometimes yeah, it is the food, but sometimes it's you, it's who and what you are and where you feel like you can take it. And I feel like that more and more every day, where yeah, there's pivots you got to make, there's adjustments, right? Like we take on things that are new, or things kind of grow, and you got to tend to it, right? The tree goes from 3 feet to 30, and the way that you got to trim dead branches is different. You adjust, you adapt, you learn, you grow with it in the experience. For some, it's maybe difficult or it's easy to detach. For me, it's even more for me to hone in on, right? Like you were saying, that balance of like Japanese media. And it's funny, I just got finished talking to like my father-in-law about like, yeah, like if I do watch the news on TV, I'm not watching American news, I'm watching NHK. And
I
I'm
see.
like, the affinity, taking it even like into the conversation we had, like, well, why? And I was like, well, there's something about Japan experience such an adverse, life-changing moment brought about from an atomic bomb that then has found itself in the media that they produce, where there's this almost underdog like quality to everything they put, or this fear of this incredible atomic threat. And I was like, that's like akin to the Black experience in a lot of ways, right? Expanding even more to people of color, to people who come from poverty. We see this kind of surge of interest in anime and mangas and video games from Japan. And there's these stories of the shonen, right? Of this journey of the hero. And there's some tropes that we are all too familiar with that in a lot of ways reflect what it means to come from adverse experiences growing
Right.
up in America. There's a lot of similarities and parallels in the imagery and the messaging, and that ability to overcome. There's nothing more gratifying than seeing your hero, your your protagonist show up and do what they do in face of danger, in face of immeasurable odds, right? You can't even begin to surmise what is the task, but they go ahead and they do it anyway. And yeah, it's like that that is something that in the transitions and the pivots and those challenging moments, those obstacles, having those supporting, even passive, like I call them passive, because it's not like I could just hit up any of the directors to be like, yeah, come, like, holla, what's up, can we kick it? It's like, no, I got to go and find your content, watch it, receive that energy, propel me forward, because sometimes the ones closest to me may not have access to it or may not know what I need. And so every little bit counts in the community. Every little bit becomes a point of reflection for that light that you may need to shine on you, or to give back to yourself, or to share with those that are close. So you can get to those points of championship moments, right? It's not necessarily winning a trophy, but maybe it's marriage, maybe it's birth, maybe it's having a home, maybe it's going out with your friends, maybe it's seeing each other, celebrating birthdays, maybe it's traveling, whatever the case is. But having those supports help along the journey when the challenges come, when people find themselves in dire straits, or sickness and unhealthiness and uneasiness and anxiety starts to mount, when the negativity becomes overwhelming, when the messaging that you're constantly being given is one of fear and a perpetual harm and hatred. um, those supports, having those people around you, really help push and drive things forward.
That's real. And you're right, like you can choose, but I think a lot of times people think about the catalyst as the machine instead of the machine as 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 a primary function. Like food is the catalyst. Food allows the body to do what it does, allows the mind, it's the energy source to allow stuff to happen. Right. And so, but a lot of the same stuff that's in the food is already right contained in the body. But the body gets depleted. And so you just got to replenish. And I think a lot of folks don't do that in their life. They don't replenish what they need to navigate this world. And they don't acknowledge what's draining them. And it's like, if you don't know how to fuel yourself, fuel your spirit, fuel your mind, your body, your ambition, if you don't know how to fuel your dreams, you're going to find yourself being drained. You may experience burnout in various ways and not know basically what hit you until you go to Uniqlo and get you some house slippers. Then you be like, this is making my life a whole lot easier. And all I had to do was find a catalyst, find the right catalyst for me to live the way I want to live. But it wasn't the house slippers that did it for me. It was my choice to identify and say, this is what I'm going to need. And I could have made a choice in getting that from anywhere. But I need a transitory shoe or footwear so that I could relax. But I found a goal that I needed to decompress. And then I had to work back from that. Say, okay, well, what do I need? I need I need hygiene, so I need to make sure that I change out of my clothes and shower and then put myself in a position to relax. Well, what's gonna make me feel relaxed? Well, like if I put my feet down on the floor, and even if I can clean the floor a million times, the dust is gonna come back. So I'm gonna need something to put my mind at ease and something that's, that's gonna help me. But a lot of times, just we got so many distractions and we can't identify what's gonna help us. So we're looking for the wrong things, the wrong classes, the wrong catalyst, somebody else's catalyst, looking at other people's lives and like this worked for them, so it might work for me. Like some people can have in and out 3 times a week and achieve the body they want. That don't mean it's for everybody, and that's okay. But you have like people if you could find the love for your life, not for yourself, but for the life you live in, then you can kind of hone in on what works for you. Like I have various talents, but one of the things I'm really good at is being myself anywhere I am. And having a uniqueness or authenticity that can show up anywhere, one allows me to be empathetic because I'm knowing myself and my own flaws, but it also allows me to show humanity, that I'm just like anybody else around me. I mean, and part of me wants to be that because I know that normal is different and different is normal. Being normal means just being yourself, and being yourself is like the most normal thing you can do.
It's kind of crazy how that works. How being normal, being your core self, being in touch with your core self, oftentimes can be extremely difficult in a world that promotes a detachment from the core,
Yeah.
where there's a heavy and steady flow to want to invest in the ego. I had a conversation recently with someone about ego and how I liken ego to the blackness of space, right? It's all around you, but your core self is the sun, and your proximity and location to your core self radiates, creates life, makes it so that you can thrive. People say there's terms like ego death and rid yourself of your ego. And that is an ongoing challenge. It's an ongoing practice. It's a day in, day out thing because we live in a world where there's many influences, there's many different um, kind of sensory touch points, sensory stimulants. And whether that's people who you talk to or just things you indulge in or like to do or things that are for your health, for your sustainability, for yourself, a little bit too much of anything can change the balance of everything. And thinking when you say fuel, right? And thinking of how people are even just aware. Like some people just don't even have an awareness nor care to even think of the distinction between self and ego, right? It's just an intertwined thing that some have come to terms with, that they feed, right? It's like the metaphor of the two wolves. Which one will you feed, right? They both exist, but the strength of one and what will happen then promotes kind of the outcome of many different things for your life. And I always think about that as like how the times when I was younger, my ego was so do things, act out, not realizing the impact or the harm it could cause to my people, to my friends, to my relationships, to the significant others, to my community. And now to have seen the harm, been harmed myself, and to grow from that and know better or have a better understanding of what fuels me, what drives me, what propels me, right? Like ego. It's so easy for people to go to that because it's readily available. Like social media is the biggest and the best machine for egos,
Mm.
right? You know, it's like
And the
it's
worst.
and the worst, right? It's so readily available to perpetuate and dive into subject matters or perspectives that just scratch the surface. And I remember coming to terms with the conversation I had, and I was like, the blind don't care about beauty, and the deaf don't care about your lies. I was like, when we think about the things that we value, what is for me the most long lasting? What is going to hold me over when beauty fades or what sounds pleasant changes based off of the context of the moment? What are the core values that I'm holding on to in somebody that resonate with me, that keep me balanced, that keep me happy, that keep me that help me reciprocate what I'm trying to garner within myself? What I'm fostering for me is what I'm trying to share with others. And so what are the qualities, right? Is it someone that is constantly invested in the most shallow of facades, knowing that that's limited? Or is it a person that's ever working towards a better version of themselves, knowing that that is in my mind, in my perspective, a very internal process? It's inward, not outward. Because if all it is trying to change the perception of yourself in the face of others or what you see in the physical form, I mean, God forbid we all go blind. But I try to operate in those terms because as much as I appreciate what I see and what I have, and as much as I enjoy the art of what this world is, that isn't everything for me. That isn't the defining basis of what I feel when I feel what I feel. And I can't help but think about that. Like, yeah, it's easy to invest in this concept of like I'm better than, I look better than, I am this, that, third, and whatever. And then realize like, wait, to whose standard? To what degree? Who am I? Where am I inheriting this from? Where are these things coming from? Where are these bases in these terms? Because when I was a kid, I can remember I cared little to nothing about that. And there's something so simple, but also something so refined and pure in that, where having the embrace of my family, to be within company, within proximity to them, to have their presence felt, meant more than what they look like to me. And as I have learned from my ego how fleeting it is when you hold on to those things, because deception is there when you look. But if you have the ability to perceive and go beyond the faculties that register the light in front of you, you start to resonate on a deeper level. You start to vibrate at a frequency that sound itself cannot produce. And so then you start to understand another language, another form of communication, of stimulus, stimuli, that then you can enhance those same feelings, right? Going back to what we were saying about diving into the mind, knowing what is the fuel, knowing how to engage and enhance and create and resurface certain things to make anew or to make better, to enjoy. And yeah, it's just like, yeah, looking at that like core self, truer you, knowing the difference, knowing what is for you and what isn't for you, knowing like, opportunities, as much as they are opportunities, as much as given is also what you produce. Something to
Yeah.
be thought of.
And and really for a lot of us we can trace back what's important to us to what was taken from us during our developmental ages, and so seeing my father's future taken from him and my future with him taken, seeing, knowing that he didn't live past the age that I am now. It became important to me, right, to live a long life, right, and that developed some of my fears, some of my inhibitions, developed some of my insecurities. It developed my defense mechanisms, but it then also became important to me at some point to share as much as I could in a short time, fully aware that I didn't have a guaranteed tomorrow. So whether I have 5 minutes or 5 years with someone, I'm trying to share what's been revealed to me through my lived experience and my observation of other people's lived experience. Then, of course, also a conversation with folks who have lived a life different than mine. But because of that life and future being taken away, it's important for me that I share as much as I know to help propel and extend others' future, you know, as best they can, not empowering them, but sharing tools that have helped me in my journey to empowerment as they are on their journey. And if I can point out, a few perspectives or ledges or platforms to climb on, I think, look at that up there. You climb on that to get to the next stage. Oh, look at that over there. You pull that down, that'll let you in that room over there. If you eat that, that might help you with the issue you have. If you do abs before you go to bed, it may take pressure off your back, right? And at any point, whatever I know is basically up for grabs while still staying on a journey to learn about myself and remember what I've forgotten and learn what my DNA has to teach me, what my bones and my spirit, what the ancestors have to reveal to me, while combating the negative messages that I'm less than, that I not only deserve to be in prison, but that is actually some type of weird inheritance or birthright passed down from the Constitution. I have to combat those messages just so I can, make it to the next day, but also keep a value in myself regardless of what I accomplish. Remind myself that everything around me can be a catalyst for what my purpose is. And in my purpose, I can be a catalyst for others, as they can also be a catalyst for me.
And I mean, that's that reciprocal, appreciation.
Right.
It's I mean, I remember for probably the length of time, YouTube was like just majority local news clips. I was just local news clips. That's what it was. It was like over and over, and I kept seeing these news clips in the evening as I started to turn down for the night. And it had such an impact and effect on me because was it surprising? No. Was I aware that these things were happening? Yes. But did I need to keep seeing more and more of it? No, I didn't. For some, it's like, oh, well, how do you know what's going on? And it's like, but what is my need to know what's going on? I have plans to do something about it. I understand how the world operates, and I'm saying it in veiled terms because I don't own any of the platforms that this is on.
Hmm.
So I
Right.
can't just give you absolute truth in places that absolute truth does not exist. When it benefits a specific group of people, that's when it becomes fact. We just went through a couple years where the ebb and flow of information changed what the facts were in relevancy to the context of who's in control every day.
Right.
So I got to speak in veiled terms, being a lyrical one, right? It's veiled in metaphor and allegorical means, similes and symbols, right? So you can pick from and get the root as you need to make the most of the interpretation. With that being said, consuming this news, getting this information that may not be information, that just may be for the purpose of conditioning me to train my mind, right? What fuels you? What are you feeding yourself? And I kept going and seeking and trying to, what does the heartbreak of today look like in my lovely area?
Man.
And I had to stop. I had to put rules and parameters on myself to disengage, to not allow myself to indulge in that way where the news, if it needed to come from somewhere, I'd rather it come from someone that knows me than detached through a network.
That's right.
Yeah, I might get on Twitter and look at some every once in a while, or yeah, I may get on my whatever news platform and look at some things. But even then, what articles I access and how much I'm taking in, I'm very selective and very disciplined in my approach. Whereas before I was just like, oh yeah, I need to know before what? This is just beating me down. This is taking away. This is fueling me in a way that is not healthy. Because as much as it's going on now, as much as I can say things are worse and things are bad, again, I have to be mindful of how am I going to address it and what am I going to do to sustain myself in addressing it? What actions am I going to do on the daily, on the most minuscule that will help fuel me for those larger actions? Because it's like then I know how I can best reciprocate those around me because
That's
of
right.
where my conditioning is for myself. What state of mind or what place am I sitting in within myself to then be around others to embrace and have that joy and to share in the smiles and relief and knowing that we're producing news as well.
That's right.
When we did the poetry night this past Friday, that was us making news. Now, who
Facts.
cares to share that? That's a different story, right? When we did the poetry night last month, when we had the four horsemen of the lyrical opposition come through, right? When we had the four pillars do their thing, right? Affluent being one of them. That was news. That was news being produced. That was history. That was a moment. That was encapsulated in time. Now, who cares to share that news? Well, again, it's a different story, right?
That's right.
Is it going to be held up to companies that benefit from the selling of and the marketing of products and services and goods? Or is it going to be from the people who benefit from knowing that there was positivity and community being built in a way that is beautiful, in a way that is healing, healthy? And so, yeah, it's like that's where you start to like really lay it in terms of Well, where do you what road are you want to do you want to pave in this direction, right? Do you want to establish yourself in this area? Healing, happiness, joy, health, like what is going to feed you? What is going to fuel you? And then when you see what you've lost, you have a different level of gratitude and appreciation when you have it, right?
True.
Like I share a lot of those same feelings because growing up in a family where a lot of people transition into another realm, right? Not being with the living, it had a profound impact on me where, yes, longevity, I share that. It is about what is sustainable for me. It is about what is healthy, right? I don't get caught in right and wrong as much as I get caught in what is healthy and sustainable. Because context will change the determining factors of right and wrong, but sustainability over time, in many regards and respects, remains unchanged. You'll find that a lot of the things that create sustainability are some of the things that have been in existence for ages. And so it's like, yeah, what we gonna do? How we gonna do it? Sometimes you gotta look back to the past. Sometimes they had it wrong. Sometimes they didn't know. But there's a lot there, a lot of wealth of information that you can use that is for sustainability and for long-term outcomes. And I mean, I agree, like, yeah, like having that ability to reflect what you're being given and harness that energy in a positive way is a beautiful thing. And it's something that is of value. It is something that it draws interest over time as it grows. It's not something that is a liability as much as it is an asset. And speaking in those terms, it's yeah, it's something that like the value is there, the worth is there, whether or not you determine how quantitative it is. That's a different story.
True. You know, and that's as stories go. It's kind of like those old choose your destiny goosebumps stories. It's like if you rocking this way, turn to page 12. If you rocking this way, turn to page 57. And I always like the roller coaster story, the the monster amusement park. One, because the artwork was great, but I read that thing legit straight through. And I did my proper turning of pages and things. And then whatever was excess in the story wasn't necessarily for me to read, but it was for me to let go of. Was definitely for me to rest away from. And I hope everyone finds where the excess is that they need to let go of. It'll it'll hone your focus. It'll move you closer to your purpose, and you may have to grieve some of the things that are excess as you rehab and recover from those vacancies created. But it's all good. It's just vacancies, you know, it's for a reason. Sometimes they're not to be refilled. Sometimes it's kind of where you get an opportunity to focus your attention on the internal.
No, I agree. It is the vacancies aren't always vacant. They just appear to have space so you can have space. There's a need for openness. There's a need to not have to feel everything. Sometimes lakes dry out. That's what happens. Sometimes a lush and dense forest will cease to exist because the axis has shifted. The amount and the degree of which was feeding the vegetation to create the climate that it needed is now barren. But there is a need for those spaces. There is a need for it. It creates a new ecosystem. It creates a new look, new energy. It's something different. And as long as it may stay and it may elapse the time that we have here, it's necessary to have those pieces within yourself that can be empty. Because
Mm,
often when it's empty, right, you can use it to be full, or you can go there to enjoy the space. Not everything needs to be condensed, not everything needs to be filled up. Sometimes you need to appreciate, like, this is a YouTube fact. YouTube fact. When they were discussing the rate of cancer in the Middle East, they said that they attributed the length of fasting and the diet to why there wasn't a high rate of cancer. Now, they did say there's a high rate of diabetes, given that there is, a much there's many delectable treats that are sweet. But when you look at the other side, right, to fast, right, to go without putting anything in your body, to sit with that. Even me, like most Mondays, most cardio days, I will fast for a lengthy amount of time. And I enjoy the feeling. This feeling
right.
of weightlessness, this feeling of like I'm exhausting myself with everything I got. There's something that I appreciate about it. Whether it's transcendent or metaphysical, whatever the case may be, there is something that I receive in forms of joy by doing that. And knowing that there's this extra element that involves your health in a different way, yeah, it makes me lean in even more because I was doing it before I even knew that random YouTube fact.
Mm,
And so, yeah, when you talk about the vacancies, clearing out your mind, emptying out your thoughts, as difficult as it may be for some, it's a worthwhile practice.
that's right.
Space. Being able to breathe in the open air without anything obstructing you and the breeze. I am one for having space. As much as I am one for maximalism, right? They talk about minimalists. They don't talk about maximalists. Like, take it to the max.
That is great honesty right there.
I
We
mean,
we we appreciate that. And the space can be reallocated, and the allocation doesn't always have to activate the same senses. And you can use the vacancy to go deeper into self, to go deeper into the internal and the healing that can happen by being just a little bit more clear headed because there's space. You're right about that.
yeah. I mean, with all the space being said, last week we had a couple events that we participated. Lyrical Opposition. We attended. Um, San Mateo's now former poet laureate had an event at Skyline College. Um, for those that got to attend or see, Cross came through with lines upon lines of electric, energetic, just magnetism. Like it was just infectious.
Typical.
And one of my variants from another timeline was there as well to perform a piece, modified for the event. But it was a great experience to see the new generation of poets that exist within San Mateo County that, are seeking to push and change and present not just who they are, but also the ability for revolution, change, answers to many of the questions and harm that is going on currently. And then Friday, that fought last week, we had our poetry night again in Brisbane. We had to make some pivots. We had to transition. We had to make some adjustments, given that we weren't able to have it at the pizza spot for many reasons. But it still happened.
Shout out to Tony Press.
Shout out to Tony Press, definitely. Tony Press came through as well with an assortment of short form poems that were poignant and so like it was moving, but it was also his delivery was just so engaging. So, we had Veronica come through and sing. She was able to pull us into what she was going through her songs. And then we had Luna Jen as well get on the guitar and like talk about everything going on with Roe versus Wade. She performed Tupac's verse from Keep Your Head Up, and it just the whole mood, like talk about putting Luna in your name. The
Mm,
gravity of the moon was felt at that particular moment. So it was definitely a great experience, a great time. July 30th, we will have an event in the East Bay at Hayward on Saturday. For there's a lot of people that we work with in the East Bay, so we're trying to make sure that we can give them the ability to come together to build community and see each other, right? To receive each other's energy and have the ability to reciprocate. It's going to be at Stacks Record Shop in Hayward, and things are looking pretty good. We'll be releasing things on social media soon for people to see what's going on, but these are the events that are happening. August 28th at New Parkway Theater, we will be showing Ranchification movie, the documentary, produced all in house by Lyrical Opposition, directed by Vigo Navarro, as well as we had them on the podcast. We had Dez, right, from the Capture Media. This is going to be another opportunity for us to bring the community together, for us to engage, share each other's energy, and yeah, let's enjoy the moment. So with that being said, Affluent, do you have any final thoughts or words for people, the lyrical ones of episode 108?
you know, they say, you know, guns and butter are important. I'm in a space where I'm okay with just the butter. And some days I'm okay with neither. And even as we subscribe to identities and groups and ideals, we can always change our mind and make a shift that promotes healing, that promotes peace, that promotes survival, that promotes love. And I think wherever stage any of us is in, we can look for injustice and then brainstorm and act for peace. Thank y'all, lyrical ones.
As often as we often do, oftenly at this time.
Once, 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 opposition,